Here we have verse 1 of the 14th chapter of the Gospel of John. We're actually in the middle of this conversation that Jesus is having with the disciples, and especially with Peter, and it's certainly probable that the statement that's made here in verse 1 of chapter 14 is intended to be connected to the conversation that is going on between Jesus and Peter, and of course the rest of the disciples with him. The chapter division kind of interrupts the thought. But Jesus has just told Peter, of course, this rather shaking statement that before the night is over, he will be denying Jesus 3 times, and then immediately it seems that Jesus gives a word of encouragement in spite of that rather striking and somewhat shaking information. So we have may, which leads into, of course, a negative, a prohibition here, and then tarasesto. This is from tarasso. It means to stir, as in stirring water or stirring something up, causing it to be troubled. And of course, metaphorically, that's the idea here. This is the third person singular, the present passive imperative. So in English, idiomatically, we bring it over using the helping word let. So typically it's translated, let it not be troubled. That's not exactly the way the Greek says it, but it's the closest we can get in English. So it's an imperative concerning a third party, a third person, in this case, the heart. He cardia, feminine noun, and the article going with it, feminine nominative singular. So the heart. Humon is placed up front, giving it a little bit of additional emphasis here. So let it not be trouble of you, the heart. Let your heart not be troubled. It's singular, of course, referring to the heart, and in some ways, maybe the individual heart of each of these disciples. Maybe what Jesus is actually saying is particularly addressed to Peter. Peter, don't let your heart be troubled in connection with what I've just said. And then we have pistuita, second person plural. Commentators divide on which it should be. The spelling is the same, so it's either believe or you believe, an indicative statement or an imperative statement. So you believe, eis ton theon, you believe into, ton theon, into the God, you believe in God, or believe in God, maybe as a command. Kai eis, into eme, with the emphatic form of the first person accusative pronoun, into me, also pistuita, believe. So again, the question of whether this is imperative or indicative remains unresolved, of course, because it's a matter of identical spelling, and it's simply how we want to interpret it. But one way or another, of course, Jesus is making the point clear, and it's really rather striking as he says, you believe in God and believe also in me. In a way, it's saying that the belief, the faith that you have in me needs to be comparable to the faith that you have in God, which once again becomes one of those many little indications throughout the Scripture that Christ is to be held in the same status as God, regarded as God, and indeed be the repository of faith, which is comparable to the faith that's placed in God.